I loved a man. That shouldn't matter. But in this world, it does. We did not grow old inside a family that was waiting for us. There were no children calling us dad. Some used to call us daddy. They never stayed long enough to help when things became heavy. They only stayed when things were harder. No in-laws to share the weight when things became heavy. It was just him and me. Two men who built a life in the quiet spaces society leaves behind for people like us. For a long time, that was enough. We became each other's emergency contact, each other's next of kin, each other's proof that we existed in a world that once pretended we didn't. When his memory began to fail, when names slipped through his hands, when the rooms of our own house started to confuse him, I understood that love was no longer just something we felt. It had become something I had to perform, every day, in ways no one prepares you for. I did not hand him over to strangers. That's the lie I told myself. I used the word facility. I said care. I signed forms with titles that promised safety. But in the end, I left the man I loved in a room where I was not there to protect him. That's the sentence I carry. People think betrayal is loud, that it announces itself with shouting or slammed doors. Betrayal can also sound like professionalism, like soft voices at a front desk.
He'll be well taken care of.
The first time I walked into his room and knew something was wrong, it wasn't dramatic. He was sitting in a chair he couldn't get out of by himself. His tray was pushed just far enough away that he couldn't reach the food. His call button was on the floor. Small things. That's how harm hides, in details that can be dismissed. I picked up the button and asked the nurse why it was there. She didn't look at him.
He throws things.
No. I wanted to say, he drops things. There's a difference between clumsiness and defiance, but when someone stops being seen as a person, every mistake becomes a problem to be managed. Another day, I found him in a shirt that wasn't his, soiled, buttoned wrong. His hands were trembling, not from illness, but from embarrassment.
I'm bad at this.
As if needing help had become a personal failure. When I asked why he hadn't been cleaned yet, I was told they were short-staffed. Always short-staffed. Always busy. Always almost about to help. Time moves differently when you're the one waiting to be treated like you still matter. One evening, I arrived early, earlier than they expected. That's when you see what routine looks like when no one is performing for visitors. His bed rails were up, not because he was violent, because it was easier to keep him contained.
Stop whining, you're not a baby.
He wasn't whining, he was confused. Confusion is not disobedience, and I said something. My voice surprised even me.
You people always think you know better.
You people... That's when I understood something I had been trying not to see. This was not just neglect. This was contempt. I reported it. Do you know what happens when you report things like this? They nod. They write things down.
We'll look into it.
And then they send the same people back into the room with the person who can no longer explain what happened. Silence is not peace. It's what institutions use when they want problems to fade without changing anything. After that, he changed. He stopped asking questions, stopped reaching for me when I visited. He began to sit very still like someone trying not to be noticed. That's what being made small looks like. People think abuse is always violent. Sometimes abuse is teaching a human being that taking up space is dangerous. I started staying longer, coming at random times, as if love could be converted into surveillance. But love does not scale. Love does not replace broken systems. Love exhausts itself trying. The night he died, I was not there. I replay that sentence like a punishment. I was at home. I had finally slept. The phone rang with the kind of calm voice that knows it holds a permanent sentence for you. I arrived to a room that had already begun to forget him. The sheets were changed too quickly. The chart was closed. The bed was already being prepared for the next body that would need to be managed. Managed, yes, not mourned. No one hurt him that night. The harm had already been done in 100 smaller ways before that moment. By every hand that treated him as a task, by every voice that spoke to him like he was difficult, by every system that taught workers efficiency without teaching them dignity. And I realized something that felt unbearable. We had survived rejection. We had survived secrecy. We had survived building a life in a world that never offered us one. But we did not survive the system that promised to care for us when we became fragile. People like to believe cruelty is rare, that abuse is an exception. It isn't. People ask me now if I'm angry. I am not angry in the way movies show anger. I am tired in a way that comes from realizing how little protection love has when it becomes inconvenient. I don't tell this story because I want pity. And I don't tell it because I think I am special. I tell it because this is not just my story. There are men right now, sitting in rooms that do not feel safe. There are partners right now, signing papers with shaking hands, hoping the word care means what it says. There are lives right now, becoming invisible inside systems that were never designed to see them fully. We don't talk about this. Instead, we talk about love, we talk about pride, we talk about coming out, but we do not talk about what happens when love becomes weak, when bodies fail, when memory dissolves, when survival depends on strangers. If you are listening to this and you work in care, I am not talking about you as an individual. I am talking about what happens when a system allows cruelty to hide behind routine. If you are listening to this and you have loved someone who became fragile, you already know how quickly trust can turn into guilt. And if you are listening to this and this feels distant to you, remember, the distance is temporary. We are all moving toward the part of life where we will depend on the mercy of people we did not choose. The question is not whether we will need care. The question is what kind of care we have decided to tolerate for those who can no longer defend themselves. I loved a man who deserved gentleness at the end of his life. What he received was procedure, and procedure, when it forgets humanity, becomes a quiet form of violence. I could not protect him from everything, but I can refuse to let the way he was treated be folded into silence. Because what happened to him was not an accident, it was allowed, and what is allowed repeats.